Dup15q is a neurodevelopmental disorder caused by duplications of the maternal copy of chromosome 15q.
My daughter has Dup15q syndrome, which stands for duplication of the 15th chromosome, and it's on the...
So you might be overestimating how many children have boundaries. This is actually a diagnosis that is a lot of it's hard to distinguish.
This is Lola. She's my sister's daughter, and although her mother has agreed to it, she still doesn't know I'm filming a documentary about her.
Uy, qué sueño. Se va a enfadar. Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Quién hay? ¿Vamos a vestir? ¿Ya tomas la leche? Uy.
Oops, she just figured out I'm gonna be there for the rest of the day. Lola has a syndrome called IDIC-15, which is one of the forms of the generally known as Dup15q. I know, it's a weird name for a syndrome. Lola thinks so too. As you can gather, Lola doesn't speak our language. Not English, not Spanish. At least not yet. Maybe she will never speak at all. That's why most of the time, it's hard to decide what she wants or how she feels. Now she's mad. Too much touching, probably? Wait, now she's clapping. But is she happy because of the song, or has she just acknowledged another day lays ahead for her? Well, there she goes again. Biting her arm is one of the things she does very often to show her frustration. But there's another smile. Lola has other ways of communicating though. For starters, she's quite the hugger. She definitely knows how to show happiness. She knows how to ask for a song when someone has stopped the music. And she knows how to cry. But for sure, is eating one of the things she enjoys the most. She likes to eat. A lot. But to understand her syndrome, we first need to go back to the beginning of all this. To where the uncertainty decided to be a part of Lola's life. We need to go back to her most minimum self and answer the necessary questions so we can make the most of her adventure. Dup15q starts in the genome, where duplications of chromosomes can have unrepairable consequences in human life. For that, I spoke to Dr. Stormy Chamberlain from the Department of Genetics and Genome Sciences of the University of Connecticut.
This is a lot like building with Legos in that you could build a house, and if you had the same number of Legos on both sides, your house would be this perfect square, and you could continue to build layer on top of layer. And in the case of Dup15q, if you have too much of a particular protein, you now have an imbalance in the sides of the wall, if you will, and pretty soon you can see that the structure won't be stable and won't continue to be nice and square. And this is largely what happens in Dup15q, is there's too much of certain types of proteins, and they cause the neurons, the cells in the brain, to not function correctly. And so they're just not doing what they're supposed to, and the cells try to compensate. They try to fix that problem themselves, but obviously they can't do it all the way, and then you end up with some of the features of the disorder.
This is Emily. Her father, John, and her mother, Maria, talked to me about her.
They all seem to have the nose. They got this cute little nose with hard, I don't know how most of them wear glasses, because they have this the cute little button nose with a very flat bridge.
A lot of kids with Dup15q have dark eyes and dark complexion, and the reason they do that is because they actually have extra copies of a gene that's important for pigment production.
There's one girl much older than Emily. We saw some video of her. She was kind of standing at a kitchen sink, and just the way she's standing, I said, my God, Maria and I said, that'll be Emily when she's 18 years old. She'll be 18, 20 years old. You see her standing there the same way, because she stands just like her. It's yeah, it's pretty funny when you see kids and you go, oh my God, Emily does that, or Emily has that resemblance. It's pretty funny.
Due to the underlying defects in the neurons in the brain cells of kids with Dup15q, each individual might come up with slightly different ways to compensate for those defects. The brain is always trying to figure out how to fix this dysfunctional Lego house that's being built, right? And one brain cell might say, oh, well, we're gonna do our best to move this one wall up a little bit higher so they're even. And the other brain might say, well, we're gonna work by dropping this wall a little bit so they're even. And so perhaps due to those types of variations, how an individual's brain has chosen to compensate for its dysfunction, that also might explain some of the variation between them. Changing this wall might have different consequences for walking, or for language development, or for seizures.
Dup15q for Emily is a lot of medication, seizures, just rough days. She can have a seizure that could actually set her off for quite some time, where she's just not herself, is not a happy camper. It's hard. It's hard for her. It's being behind where her sister is, and not a lot of fun.
Recently, her seizures have really taken off. It only takes one seizure to cause, an accident like the other day where she fell backwards and split her head open. So even though that day she only had 2 seizures, that one was just, very traumatic for her sister, for our family.
This is Erin. The one on the right is Aileen, her mother, who also spoke to me.
A lot of these kids have trouble sleeping. Erin was one of them. The sleep deprivation is really hard. And you know, the melting down in different situations, you know, mainly, you know, if you're in public.
I don't want to go. We gotta go to the car. Come on. Come on. You want Jackie to come?
Meltdowns are also a part of the most relevant symptom of the syndrome. Autism.
It was only a matter of time.
Hey, that's not nice. We don't do that.
Come on. Come on.
Dup15q is what we call a syndromic form of autism. Autism is a clinical diagnosis, so it means that kids with autism have features. One is social interaction, the other is communication, and the third is restrictive and repetitive behaviors.
A lot of ABA therapy is what's going to help her manage the autism, expressing her needs, being able to communicate, whether it would be verbally or with pictures or the iPad, any means of communication, I think is going to be huge in dealing with the autism and be able to interact with other people.
ABA is applied behavior analysis, and it's just a way of shaping behavior. Sometimes people could see it as a little too harsh or almost punitive, but if you get the right therapist, it can really benefit.
Lola does ABA therapy, although the time I went along with her, she didn't want to go to therapy that much. Until she actually got there. And it is easy to see how it is helping her. To ask for things hitting a keyboard. Or to just respond with emotion to the picture of her mother.
Ella sí que da con este de la mami, ¿eh? Lola, ¿es la mami? ¿Eh?
Or her sister.
¿Quién es esta? ¿Quién es Lola? O sea, la persona cambia per complet. Però ho va fer fa 20 dies, una cosa així. No feia... Me posava les fotos i passava. Qui és? Lola, qui és? Mama?
We would think that the earlier you intervene, the better the long-term developmental consequences are, right? So hopefully there's a point at which we can intervene where, you know, the child would really not seem to have Dup15q syndrome at all. But there are kids who are walking around today with Dup15q syndrome. And so, of course, they've done some of their neural development already. And so we would hope that even by restoring gene expression, we might ameliorate some of their symptoms. So maybe we make their seizures a little bit better. Maybe we give them the ability to learn a little bit better. We all know that we can learn late into our lives. And so, you know, there's a chance that the therapies would even work in older children and adults with the disorder.
This is Megan. I talked to one of her teachers, Caitlin Carmody.
Meg is a super senior here at Bedford High School, and Meg is participating in our life skills program. It's a program for students to help with their transitional skills and their functional life skills to get them ready to go out into the real world. After she turns 21, Meg is actually going to go and work with a program called Easter Seals, and they're going to come into her home and do a lot of daily living skills with her and get her prepared to, you know, live in the real world. Meg is now able to go get her lunch card, grab it from a specific spot, take it, walk all the way down to the lunchroom without any prompts, without anyone needing to be right there. And those are things that we learn over time.
Cheyenne Key, please come to the athletic department. Cheyenne Key, please come to the athletic department.
Every kid or adult with Dup15q is different, but it is hard to find examples of people with the syndrome living independently. Thus, the uncertainty for the futures of Meg, Emily, Lola, or Aaron.
It's hard to imagine. Sometimes you don't want to think too far into the future because it's, scary in terms of, where she'll live and who will care for her. But, my hope would be that she could have a little bit more independence and life skills in terms of caring for herself, and maybe going out into a community and being a contributing part of a community, maybe either working or volunteering or just feeling loved and that she has a meaningful life.
If there was a way to just stop the seizures, if there was a way to absolutely 100% stop the seizures of these kids, they would definitely thrive. Just to stop the electrical spikes that are going on in their brains, or limit them, would be a huge, huge factor.
We know Dup15q is caused because of the certain set of Legos you got. There's too many of one variety of Lego in your Lego box, and that caused Dup15q. Autism in general, the house is unstable, but we don't know whether it was because the Legos were built on a hill. Technically, it could be caused because there's an earthquake. The Legos are perfectly fine, the Legos meaning the genes, and you're never going to get a stable structure because there's an earthquake, right? Something else has moved these Legos. And so Dup15q is really, it's perfect to study because we know exactly what box of Legos you've gotten. We have a defined structure, we have a defined set of rules to start with. And I think we're going to get further studying these genetic forms of autism than idiopathic autism because we have a handle on it. We have a place to start. We have a way to ask, how does this gene contribute to the speech deficits, to the social interaction deficits, to the repetitive behavior deficits.
And in the meantime, while science finds hope for people around the world living with Dup15q, it is our turn to be the piece that stabilizes the structure. Because as usual, life is about human connection, and families are the first rock.